We've come a long way in our book, Moksha, Liberation. This spiritual novel about a woman's journey to self-discovery and freedom from suffering. By Sky Guardian's calculations, we have 12 pages left, and I think we can finish that together. Our protagonist has come through so many challenges thus far, and yet she is still alive. Her journey has been to understand her true self as the Divine Mother. The plot of this book, if you don't already know, is that the Divine Mother had an argument with the Divine Father. And so as a variant of the silent treatment, she wiped her own memory and incarnated on Earth. And the Divine Father went, "Oh, geez, now I gotta orchestrate a whole story for her to remember her true self again, to show her that I care." And she has still not remembered her true self. Gone through many things. The most recent escapade has been a great flood that has washed away the place in India that she was living. And it's kind of a post-apocalyptic setting a little bit. A year has passed since the flood. Let's continue where we left off. On my long walk each morning, to the rusty water pump and back, to the rich man's house and back, protected by my cloak of untouchability and poverty, I silently chanted Om Namah Shivaya. At certain intervals, when my mind was completely silenced, the sharp pangs of hunger, the chronic pain, my depression, my feeling of betrayal were kept at bay. For those few seconds, all vanished. Then, a lorry going by, a shout, a car horn, a baby's cry would shock me back to the desperate world spread before me. I understand the teachings, I said to my teacher, Miss Nandi, one day. My doubts have been resolved, my questions answered. I meditate every day, and there are moments, sometimes minutes, when I become absorbed in Brahman, universal consciousness, and I am full and complete, at peace. I want for nothing. But then, as I go about my day, I forget. The past sorrows come flooding back. The future is a terrifying blank, and I start to slip. Old habits die hard, she said. You have listened and understood. The seer and the seen, the 3 states of experience, the 4 Mahavakyas, great sayings, the 5 sheaths, Tattvam Asi, Dharma, meditation, all this you know very well. Your doubts have been resolved. The veil of ignorance begins to lift. But then through habit you lapse into erroneous thinking, where you are again the limited, insignificant individual. Let me tell you a story about a sheep-lion, a favorite story of Swami Vivekananda. A lioness and her cub were wandering through the forest when they became separated during a severe storm. The poor cub took shelter with a flock of sheep. The sheep welcomed the helpless cub into the fold. Years passed, and the cub grew up imagining himself to be a sheep. One day, an old lion who was observing the flock of sheep from the ridge of a hill was shocked to see a lion in the midst of the sheep. And even more astonishing was the sight of this lion bleating like a sheep and munching on grass contentedly. The old lion sprang down on the flock, and as the sheep scattered, the old lion isolated the young sheep lion from the flock. "What's going on?" the old lion roared. "Why are you bleating like a sheep and munching on grass? You are a lion." "Please let me go," the sheep lion bleated, terrified. "I am not a lion. I am a sheep." The old lion dragged the sheep lion by the scruff of his neck to a nearby lake. "Look," he roared, "you are a lion. You are the king of the jungle." The young sheep lion peered into the water. There was his great mane, a fine head. He turned to the old lion, then stared at his reflection. He understood that he was indeed a lion, the king of the jungle, and he roared ferociously. That night, the sheep lion, no longer afraid, slept in the open by himself. But when he woke up the next morning and spotted the sheep grazing in the distance, he ambled over to them and started munching on the grass contentedly. He knew without a doubt that he was a lion and not a sheep, but all those years of thinking of himself as a sheep had formed a powerful habit he could not break. The old lion came by, understood the sheep lion's predicament, and told him what he must do. He was to go to the lake every morning and gaze at his reflection. The sheep lion took the advice of the old lion and went to the lake every day. The day finally arrived when there was no need for the sheep lion to gaze at his reflection. He knew without a doubt he was a lion and not a sheep. Miss Nandi said gently, "Like the sheep lion, you have to be reminded of who you truly are until there is no need to be reminded." "How do I see my reflection?" I asked. "Through contemplation, Nididhyasana." "I meditate," I said. "Contemplation is not meditation. Contemplation comes after meditation." Pardon me. Dhyana and dharana. "Is there a technique?" I asked. "What do you think?" "I'll show you one or two. We can take up one now." Sit back, relax, meditate for 10 minutes, whatever way you like to meditate, counting, breath, whatever is your practice. Calm the mind, drive away all thought. We meditated. "I will chant an extended Om," she said. "When you hear the Ah sound, reflect on your waking life, your daily chores, ups and downs. When you hear the Ooh, you are dreaming. Maybe a dream of your school days. And with the assume the blackness of night, where there is no thought. Then pay attention to the silence between one Om and the next. Om, silence. Om, silence. You are the silence in which that waker comes and goes, the dreamer comes and goes, and when the deep sleeper unquestioningly surrenders mind and body to darkness. You are that silence, that unchanging consciousness, because of which all the three states are manifest. You are the light in which the three states come and go. Om directs you to that immortal you, to peace, bliss, non-dual, Shantam, Shivam, Advaitam. That self that is to be known. Open your eyes, manifest the three roles you play, the waker, the dreamer, the deep sleeper. That you are not. An actor playing three roles. All the world's a stage, and all the men and women merely players. They have their exits and entrances. Over the next several months, Miss Nandi demonstrated 12 more Nididhyasana techniques. In any Upanishad, you can find techniques that help you get rid of bad habits that creep in, she said, through contemplation, through Nididhyasana. Chapter 18. The calamities came in successive spurts. Storms inundated southern Ohio, shattering all rainfall records with a human toll of 74, most of whom were elderly residents of a trailer park. Simultaneously, a typhoon slammed into the Philippines with a 120 miles per hour gusts that brought 65 inches of rain and deadly landslides. A week later, wildfires raced through the American Northwest, where 10 million acres burned for weeks. Heat waves took over most of Thailand, causing the deaths of 7,000 and displacing 4 million. Earthquakes cropped up everywhere. Southern China, Texas, Chile, Oklahoma. The epicenter of the most severe earthquake was in Los Angeles, where the downtown was leveled and fires took over the Hollywood Hills. Western Australia was ravaged by raging wildfires, reducing half of the continent to grey ash. Several Polynesian islands were hit by fierce tsunamis and disappeared altogether. Of interest, and widely covered in the press, was the complete annihilation of the island where prominent industrialist Helmut Gerhardt, his immediate family, and 150 elite guests had gathered to celebrate the nuptials, new word for me, of Gerhardt's oldest son, Jonas, to a Greek shipping heiress. There were no survivors. These have been the antagonists of our story thus far. Secretly asuras, demonic beings. Seems they have met their maker. Of lesser interest was the flooding of the Ganga Delta, where there was negligible property damage and around 2,000 fatalities, mainly impoverished Bangladeshis. Rain and hailstorms cut across Wales. Severe drought continued relentlessly in Brazil. Over 100 wildfires broke out in Siberia, creating a holocaust. Mount Everest and other Himalayan ranges were closed to trekking as avalanches became commonplace. The breach of a dam across a remote northern tributary of the Ganga in the high Himalayas was submerged some villages, but the damage was not serious enough to bring in help. A few months later, there were landslides further downstream. Again, the losses were not out of the ordinary, as these sparsely peopled mountainous regions faced such events every year. But when heavy flooding hit the populous plains of the subcontinent and destroyed whole cities, panic ensued. Corpses waiting their turn to be cremated lay in unseemly heaps. One afternoon, when I was at the rich man's house, I passed by an open window and caught sight of Hari on television. He was in smart rain gear, green flap jacket and helmet, and was gesturing at the frothing mud-filled river and the ravaged land. The Ganga is on a rampage, he could be heard over the din, to right its course, to become a river again. This river is not a sewer. This is true for all rivers, he said. A few months later, rather, Hari's interactive digital map surfaced and went viral. At first, no one claimed authorship for what became known as the map. But after a few days of frenzied worldwide speculation, a group of students made it known that the map was the outcome of a class project. Others from different parts of the globe took credit as well, all insisting that they had fed real-time data into it. When it became evident that the United Nations had been warned of these disastrous events and had neglected to take preemptive action, the UN building in Manhattan was stormed and set on fire. The Secretary General was pelted with shoes. Men, women, and children from every part of the world, from every class of society, took to the streets. There were clashes with police, with soldiers, with private security forces. Crowds were mowed down, but the marching continued. No government was spared. Even Switzerland, that complacent mountainous country with its diabolical banking system that protected the wealth of dictators, criminals, and bullies, saw its staid and decorous streets burn. One morning, Miss Nandi took to praying. She had the habit of praying to all and sundry, almost to a different god, and for each day of the year for particular dispensations. The monkey god to overcome hardships, the elephant god for auspiciousness, Mahalakshmi for wealth, Sri Sarasvati for learning, and so on. But now she left off her pleas to numerous deities and focused on one prayer, chanting it over and over again. Began at dawn and continued into the night. A prayer of appeasement to the great Lord of everything. Soon Ganesha and I began chanting with her. Muthu joined in whenever he visited us too. Salutations to you, and your bows and arrows, protector and punisher. Your anger reaches all sides of the earth. May that arrow that is poised to hurt us a blessing. Please, we beg of you, put away your bow and arrows. We have sinned and know that we are only reaping the fruits of our misdeeds, our depravity, our greed. But now we call to you with devotion and love. Show us your true form through a blessing. The crescent moon on your head, the snake around your blue neck, your auspicious ash markings, your matted hair, your third eye. Late into the night, as the sacred sounds of the prayer swirled in my head, I recalled that night in the cave when Sid had stood encased in a storm of lightning and rain, a snake at his feet. I centered my mind on this image and its many aspects. In time, the image disappeared and my chanting ceased. The routines continue. Before daybreak, I make my way to the water pump, jostling with others, pushing Old Faithful, our life-saving pram, stacked with empty water bottles. Midway, the rising of the sun stops our march, and we all bow down. Pushan Ekarshya, O nourisher, solitary traveler, controller, gather up your rays, remove your dazzling glitter, and show me the being that is you, that is me. Excluded from the stone edifices of men, where gods are held hostage and managed by intermediaries, the horizon is our place of worship, the offering, our labor, the sun, our living deity, shining on all. I bow my head. Glory be to God for dappled things, all things counter, original, spare, strange, whatever is fickle, freckled, who knows how, with swift, slow, sweet, sour, a dazzle, dim. He fathers forth whose beauty is past change. Praise him. Gerard Manley Hopkins. A woman hands her baby to me while she adjusts the unwieldy cylindrical aluminum can on her back, strapped to her narrow shoulders. I wipe steaming snot from the baby's nose with the tip of my sari. What is his name, I ask. He is Vinayak, and I am Anjali, the woman says. I am Uma, I tell her. We sit close, Miss Nandi and I. We have no texts, no pen or paper. We recite verses from memory, ask questions, answer them. Is there one God or many? There is only God. What is Maya? Maya is ignorance, avidya. Ignorance that is not merely an absence of knowledge, a negative, but exerts two positive powers. The truth is obscured and error is projected. I see a sinuous shape in the dark and I project a snake and become afraid. I suffer. Time, space, and causation are creations of Maya. Religion, science, and art are located in Maya. Maya conceals Brahman, universal consciousness, and projects the universe. How do I escape from the trap of Maya? The way out of Maya is through Maya. I make the play of Maya my play. Focus, concentrate, no. Maya cannot bear the light of reason. How can insubstantial Maya obscure all-pervading Brahman? I close my eyes. Doesn't the sun disappear? I must open my eyes to see the sun. What is Upadhi? Upadhi is a limiting adjunct. The pot is an Upadhi for clay. The pot is merely a name and form and is transient. Pot adds nothing to clay. A red rose placed near a crystal makes the crystal appear red. The red color is an Upadhi for the crystal. The rose has to be removed. My body, my mind and senses are Upadhis for consciousness. The universe is an Upadhi, a play of shadow and form, obscuring the underlying reality, Brahman. Why haven't scientists discovered this underlying reality, Brahman? The nature of reality, or consciousness, is not within the scope of science. Science is based on duality and can only deal with objects out there, the material universe. Enlightenment is not to be found in the object, but in the subject, At the quantum level, however, scientific experiment confirms that the distinction between subject and object is blurred. Is Vedanta a religion? Non-dual Advaita Vedanta is not a religion with beliefs, ritual, and clergy. It is a teaching method that leads the individual to the truth of consciousness, Brahman, the eternal substratum of the universe. Is Vedanta opposed to religion? Vedanta is inclusive, not exclusive, pointing us to the unity of existence, the unity of creation. Others, religion, science, mystic revelation, are not wrong, but are preliminary to this ultimate goal of humanity. Can meditation bring about enlightenment? Only the removal of our ignorance of our true nature results in enlightenment. Meditation is a tool to still the mind so that we can access the wisdom of the rishis. Meditation on its own will not result in enlightenment. What are the practices and rituals of Advaita Vedanta? There are none. Is there a process? Deep listening and understanding, Shravana, reflection and removal of doubts, Manana, contemplation, Nididhyasana. Through Shravana, knowledge dawns. That is the flame. Through Manana, this knowledge is not allowed to vanish. Nididhyasana keeps the flame alive through the trimming of the wick. The inquiry, who am I, is Shravana. The ascertainment of the meaning of who I truly am is Manana. And the practical application of each is Nididhyasana. Sri Ramana Maharshi. Why do we have desires? At a fundamental level, all desires are attuned to discovering our true nature. Our search is doomed if we see external objects as the solution, because we seek happiness outside when happiness and joy are already our intrinsic nature. How does an enlightened person behave? In the day-to-day world, the enlightened person knows that everything is consciousness, and everything is one's own self. There is nothing that can cause us harm or hurt us. There is no confusion, anger, envy, fear, all of which result from separation. Do we have free will? Free will is located in Maya, material existence. If we believe ourselves to be separate from each other, separate from creation, we exert free will. At the highest level, there is only consciousness, and free will becomes irrelevant. We should go on as if we had free will until we know. What do these teachings give us? These teachings are pointers to moksha, liberation. What is moksha? Moksha is knowing the truth of the self. With moksha comes freedom from suffering and freedom from rebirth. We meditate on plants and trees, on animals and birds, on planets, on the gods. We resort to mantras, the breath, movement. We meditate on Om. We smile, we laugh, we sing, we dance, we tell stories. I am the tree of life, the Rishi jubilantly declares. My fame reaches the mountaintop. In time, the storms die down, the fires run their course. There is sporadic fighting, but no one has the heart for war. Suicides of young men, commonplace in past years, cease. Muthu leaves, taking Ganesha with him. Miss Nandi and I remain in those 2 rooms for 14 years. And that is the end of the final chapter of this book, but not the end of our reading, dear viewer. There is one more story to tell from the level of the divine. My dear Muthu and Ganesha, my beautiful boys, I began my fiction that New Year's Eve when Sid spoke to me of the little boy Nachiketa and his conversation with Yama, the Lord of Death. It is for you that I now present that story, that truth. Although what I know cannot be conceived and what I am is beyond imagination, I write without faith that there will be understanding and know that by writing I am failing. There you are amidst the devastation that stretches to the horizon, planting and singing, filled with youthful anticipation of a better day to come. In your photo, both of you stand astride the equator with the same broad, happy smile. The blazing sun strikes your bronzed backs. Your fellow laborers crouch in the shadow of a rock, crying out to you to come and rest with them. But you will not cease your laboring. You will continue planting one seedling at a time, stopping only to look back and look ahead. The task is daunting, but you are not discouraged. There can be no beginning and no end, but in this universe, in this relative reality trapped in time, we work. We continue with this journey, which is not a journey at all, but a gradual lightening of a load that comes off one's shoulders of its own accord, with no grand proclamation. Tattvam asi, thou art that, is not a prayer, nor a promise, but a statement of fact, declared in the present tense. Moksha is not the reward of our seeking or the result of our actions. Moksha is knowing the truth of ourselves. I write because your beloved Nandi Ma is ill and will not last much longer. When she is awake and clear-headed, she looks around and is fretful. She insists I take her to Mount Kailasa. It is where she wants to breathe her last, she says. My one binding desire, she confesses. I try to reason with her, try to convince her that everything she needs is within her, a phrase she has drilled into us all these years. But she says she has an urge to travel as she used to. I tell her it is impossible for us to make such a long, arduous journey. There are no proper modes of transport, but she will not leave off her moaning and fussing. It is time for you to come. We must see her through. We will make our way to Mount Kailasa, and I will dip my feet in Lake Mansarovar, where I once played. Om Tat Sat. The end. for listening as we ventured through the journey of the story thus far of a woman on her way to self-discovery and freedom from suffering. I am so grateful that we got to have this book together to read. But I thank dear Tara for allowing us to read it here. She is such a wonderful author, an expression of the Divine Mother too. Soon we shall have an interview with her as our cherry on top of the sweet cake it was to engage in this story together. There are some notes at the end, which I'll add as well, for the sake of posterity. Vedanta requires two components, a prepared student and an enlightened teacher. There are many great Vedanta teachers across the globe. For ease of reading, Sanskrit terms in italics are explained in context and presented in lower caps without diacritics and accents used to aid in pronunciation. Online resources listed below provide excellent lectures, videos, and essays on Advaita Vedanta. 1. Swami Tadatmanada of the Arsha Bodha Center from Somerset, New Jersey at www.arshabodha.org. That's ARSHABODHA. One of her gurus and a guru of Sky Guardian Ji. Swami Tattwamayananda from the Vedanta Society of Northern California, www.sfvedanta.org. That's VEDANTA. Swami Sarva Priyananda of the Vedanta Society of New York, www.vedantany.org. And this website provides a good introduction to the gods of Hinduism and related topics. Sri Devi Bringi Shakti Institute, www.shaktiinstitute.com. That's SHAKTI, Shakti. And these texts deal with the tantric path to enlightenment, typically excluded from traditional Vedantic teachings. Swami Satyasangananda Sarasvati of the Sri Vijnana Bhairava, The Ascent, published in Mungar, Bihar, India, of the Yoga Publications Trust in 2014. That's Sri SRI Vijnana, Vijnana, and Bhairava, Bhairava. And then there's Osho, OSHO. Osho International Foundation, The Book of Secrets, 112 Meditations to Discover the Secret Within, published in New York, New York, by St. Martin's Press. That is officially the final thing to read in the book. Namaste, and may we all realize the truth of ourself. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.